What kind of denial must it be? What kind of power of denial must it be that within you lives the greatest being in this universe? Not in this universe, beyond this universe. Literally, within you, the presence of that which is the highest beyond all thought and imagination and visualization. It is already there. The presence of that one is no different from that one itself. It's not that presence and it are separate. Its presence is it. So that lives within you. As the light of creation, as the guide which can guide you on everything, as the answer to any question that we may ever have. So then, how is it possible that we are not rejoicing? How is it possible? So, either this is not true, either this is just make-believe, hocus-pocus stuff, or there must be a power within us also to deny this. To deny the greatest gift ever, the greatest presence ever. So the human condition is a seeming tug of war between these two powers. The power to deny, which has no positive outcomes. It's just a denier, just the voice of limitation. And the greatest force in this creation and beyond this creation, in fact, that force which is responsible for creation, that is already here. So most of humanity, strangely, is familiar with the voice of limitation. And that seems comfortable and at home. We seem at home in that. But what about this divinity? Is it there or not? There or not? So if it is there, then what are we on about? What are we on about? How can there be, and between these two, is there a little old me that is shuttling about like a tennis ball between the two ends? No, it is not so. The first one itself is playing this game, this lila. And to play it, it is designed the denial to make it seem as if its reality can be hidden. So all is up to you. It's completely up to you. Papaji said very simply, he said, you need nothing to be happy. But to be unhappy, you need at least one idea. The mind makes you believe that you can be unhappy just like that. Just like that. In your original state, you can be unhappy. It is not possible. For unhappiness, you always need a because. Because. For happiness, what is already your gift is already apparent. So it must be our blessing for the whole world and all the people in it that they must come into God's light. Because without coming into God's light, it is like living but actually never lived. Because living like you are a bundle of food is not life. That you are just this flesh which was born and will die is not life. So if you are alive now with God's light, how can you bear it that your brothers and sisters are not? So we must bless everyone that they turn towards the light and let go of the ignorance which is clouding their life, clouding their mind. But blessing them is a good start, but it is not enough. Your life must also represent that. You have the gift. You have the gift. Now, to go to the voice of the false still is ignorance of a higher variety. See, it is ignorance of a higher variety than those who have not come to God, who have not met God in their heart. At least they have an excuse because all of this to them may sound like it is just made up fairy tales. So firstly, confirm to yourself that is your insight true or is it false? Is who you are meeting in your heart, is that the holy presence or is that some just biochemical reaction? Is that just something your seeming brain is manifesting for you? And if you have doubts like this, then put them, bring them in your light. Bring them to God's light itself. But confirm this to yourself, that God lives within me. And we'll come to what that me is in a moment. Because God obviously doesn't live within a bundle of flesh. A bundle of food is not God's home. So God's presence lives within you, but that you is not an object. But we'll come to that in a moment. First, confirm that that which you call I am is who I am. Whose amness is that? Huh? Who's that? Who is that? Who is here? And if you don't know, don't you feel like that question must take dominance over every other question you're trying to resolve? Or are you willing to let just some mysterious presence is within me? I don't know. Let me go about my life. That sounds super absurd to me. That there is a presence, I am. That is apparent to all of us, isn't it? Those of you who are really new to Satsang, we can talk about it in a moment. But I'm talking to most of you where it is undeniable. I am. Yes or no? Now, either the mind has succeeded in convincing you that that presence belongs to a body and is under the service of the mind, or you recognize that that presence is unlimited. It is beyond boundary, beyond birth and death. Which is it? So, which is it? We must confirm these things. We cannot be half-hearted about this stuff anymore. Who is living here? How can any other thing be important? So, without you confirming this, the flip that I want you to make is not going to happen. When you are still in doubt, it is not going to happen. So first you have to confirm that it is God's presence, it is God's light, it is a higher being than you can ever imagine. And I am already claiming it for you. I'm already making the claim on your behalf. You have to follow with full faith and explore this for yourself. Because without faith, you cannot even explore it. You will put it in a construct which is too limited. So a voice that you trust, that you call Father, is making the claim for you. And if you're unwilling to follow that with faith, then there is no point saying Father. Then we are just coffee table friends, chai shop buddies at best. But if you say Guru or Father, and your Guru is telling you that it is God itself which you call my presence, and that should be the center of your exploration. No other problem in the world is worth resolving as much as this is. So drop your attachment to other things in the world which are going to die soon and get to the confirmation of the eternal existence within you. Nothing else is worth it, especially not any sort of spiritual sightseeing. Oh, sometimes I experience peace and then this calms and then it goes away and then I have the experience. All this spiritual sightseeing business is not worthwhile at all. Then this happens, when I listen to you, then I find peace, or someday actually it disturbs me even more. It doesn't matter. There is a being within you. Till you can resolve who that is, all the rest is all surface level nonsense. Whose presence is that? The sages have told us that your Atma is the Paramatma, your Atma and Brahman are the one and the same. The Supreme and the presence within you is one and the same. And what are we going on about? That me which we are going on about has never existed, never been born. God's light is here, and our doubt always is, but what about me? Nothing about you, because you don't exist. So stop treating the non-existent as existent and the existent as non-existent. And this is the flip that we need to make. Once you recognize that this presence is here, and either on faith or on inquiry, if you find that this presence is God, then this life must belong to that presence and not to the non-existent one. It is not a discovery so that you can get into a relationship with it. It is a discovery so that you can chop off your own head. The head full of knowledge. But that knowledge has the narrative where the central character is a non-existent me. So come to the holy presence within you, the living Atma within you, and know that it is the only existent. There is nothing else existent here for it to have a relationship with. So when the sages said God or me, not God and me, they are saying it very, very literally. Even now you may be asking, so how am I receiving this? What's happening to me as I hear these words? Can I live like this? It has nothing to do with any of that. Nothing to do with any of that. How must I change my life because of this? Forget about yourself, the false self. Forget about the non-existent. And see that the presence that is here is beyond any gift that you can ever receive in the world. It's the most absurd exchange that we make. The mind offers us what? Even in the best stories, what does it offer us? I know about the terrible stories. So it's just like, poor me. But what about me? But even the best stories are what? What is on offer? What is on offer? You'll become what? King of this world? You'll become the first world president? All the countries will unite and you will become the president of the world. And then what will happen? You'll die. What is an offer that you're exchanging God for it? You will become the most enlightened sage that ever lived. You will give birth to 10 Ashtavakras. What is it? What is it that you want like that? that which every true sage is in service to, at the feet of, that is already in your heart. You don't have the capacity to desire more than what you already have. It's not that you should not want, but the problem is that the instrument with which you can want, what it has to offer cannot come close to what you already have. So to want then in spite of that, you see, is only possible in a delusion about what already is. Are you hearing me? So how is it possible to want? Oh, I want to be special. I want to be this. I want to be that. I want to be seen. I want to be something. I want to be free. I want everyone to know I'm free. All of these things can only happen in denial of what is already there. Once you say that God is, now say the rest. Especially if you say only God is. Then say God want like this, God want to be seen, God. Is it possible? So first, to want, to desire, you must be in denial of what already is. And that is why I'm saying that don't leave this exploration halfway. There is a living presence within you. If it just came, if it just came, then won't you drop everything else and say, who is this? Who has come inside me? Suppose we're all dead, like walking zombies, we're all dead. And suddenly, the presence is here. Would you say, oh, let me tend to my work first, and then I'll see if I have time, I'll see who this is. It's not possible. Who is this? And once you recognize this, who this is, how is it possible to value anything in comparison to this? Because God is here. And if God is here, then how are we even talking all this? So we have taken the unreal to be real and the real to be unreal. Because if an aspect of God which we recognize objectively as God, as a form of the Lord, walked into the room just now, then we would not even need to have this conversation. But you are getting a more intimate insight, a truer insight, which is beyond coming and going. But that we don't value because we don't value the real, the unchanging, we value the changing. So we're still waiting for spiritual experiences, some presence of some feeling, something like that. And in all of that, looking for the real within the unreal, we're spending our whole life missing the real. This is the whole game of Maya. And moment after moment after moment, days after days after days, weeks after weeks after weeks, months after months, 2 years after years, we spend like this. And soon it is time out, time over. Lifetime after lifetime. The one that you want to become is going to die anytime soon. And another lifetime of Lakshmana not getting off the horse of individuality, of pride, of specialness. And another ring going into the sage's vows. There is no clue that all of you have not been provided now. There is no clue that has not been provided now. But if your only lamentation continues to be, but the mind says, but the mind says, but the mind says. I know what the mind says. Tell me what the heart is saying. You see? And if you did not have the power to switch out from your mind to your heart, then why would I repeat this for 12 years? Where are you trying to get clarity? Where are you trying to understand? I'm talking about a living presence. Where are you hearing all of this? Are you still in, but I don't get it? Are you denying that you are? So there would be no hope in this Leela if there was no power in us to follow a higher voice than the mind's voice. If these two voices were made available, the mind and intuition, the ego and God's light, the ego and the heart, the head and the heart. But the second one you couldn't go to anyway. Then why would God create it? Just to tease you. Oh, it's there, but you have no power to go to it. Every sage has told us. Bhagwan has told us, as long as you think you have any choice in anything, make the choice not to go with the stream of thoughts. Make the choice not to go with the stream of thoughts. Was he fooling us? You may say Ananta is a fool, he's a liar. Was Bhagwan fooling us? Is he a liar? Papaji said, keep quiet. Was he talking about your physical mouth? He was talking about the absence of egoic belief. Don't buy into your mental notions. Keep quiet. Guruji says, don't identify. He has told us clearly that you have attention and belief, and using which you identify. Don't identify. I keep saying, don't believe your next thought. And if you buy to yourself, oh, but my mind says, but it happens automatically. And the belief identification happens automatically. Do you really believe that all of us are that stupid? I have spent 12 years of my life telling you not to believe your thoughts. And if your defense after 12 years is, I can't help it, it just happens automatically. Then I must be the most foolish teacher you can ever go to. So I'm provoking you, of course, to switch out of this limited mind, and I'm introducing the fact to you that you are consciousness. You are not hostage to any mind. The mind is under your power. You are not under it. If you were not God or an aspect of God, then we could not have this conversation. Then satsang would not be consciousness speaking with consciousness. But because you do have that power, but you're still enthralled with what it is offering, and you keep denying that, then I have to provoke you. Don't be enthralled by the mind's temptations and positions. Nothing that it says is true. And if you use the content of what your mind is saying to audit your state, there can be no greater foolishness than that. So how are you right now? The most popular question in the world. How are you right now? Where will you go for the answer? Does anyone say, I am so good, God is here? Oh, I'm all right. Because, this happened and then this happened. And then I wanted this job and I wanted this girlfriend. And yeah. Who are you using? What tool are you using to determine you are that in which God is? And your report is about what? You ate some food and you keep reporting about that. So where will you go for a true report? What is happening with you? How are you? What are you? Where are you? Who are you? Where can you go for a true answer? So, what am I saying? I'm saying that this is not about reforming your mind. I'm not expecting that your mind will change. At best, what will happen is that the intellect aspect of your mind will start judging things for God and not against God. That is the best outcome we can expect in the mind. But you, as consciousness, can recognize that there is a higher power calling you from within your heart. You have to give up wanting to be right. Suppose you die fully convinced with all your mind's nonsense and you convince yourself and everyone around you that you are right. So, what will happen? What will happen? Fully you convince yourself that you are right. And not only yourself, and this will never happen, but suppose everybody around you also will think that you are right. And you die the rightest in your head. You were right about what you thought, you were right about your judgments, you were right about your master, you were right about the teaching, you were right about everything. You were right about how life is, everything, but it's all here, conceptual. That's how all the zombies are living anyway, thinking that they're right. Get out of this righteousness. It's not true righteousness. It is only pride. Get out of it and step into the humility of your heart. Don't care about being right. Care about God's light. That's where humility comes in. And I'm happy I'm sharing this with you because this morning, as I opened my page, or the notes page for the contemplation to be posted, something felt to refer to the Narad Bhakti Sutras, and some of you may be aware of those. And one sentence attracted my attention there, which was God hates pride and loves humility. And I was going to post the contemplation about that. But then it just occurred to me in my heart that the children will not understand this, like God hating pride, because uh, maybe it's better said and explained rather than put in words like that. It's not that God hates. It's not that God hates. But our pride is blocking us from God. Our wanting to be right, our need to be seen, our need to be special is blocking that absence of egoic belief that I'm talking about. It's stopping you from becoming quiet like Papaji wanted. So when the invitation these days is coming, often from this expression that we must live as if we are humble servants of God. It is because as a humble servant of God, we don't need to be right. We don't need to prove anything to the world. We don't need to become special. To switch out from egoic intent, egoic belief, to a life of God's light cannot happen while we are arrogant or proud. And the extent to which that goes is to the extent of even one thing. I say often earlier that to know even one thing is to know too much. What do you know without knowing anything? That is the extent of humility that is needed. And I mean completely. I'm being fully literal. You have to become fully empty. Your knowledge plagues you, it makes you suffer, it is making you tired. It is the burden on your heads. You may think it is what you have that is of value, but it is not. So when your mind is empty of conceptual knowledge, that is the only point at which intuitive knowledge can sprout and flower within you. Till you are not empty, then all your talk about awareness and consciousness and God is empty. Very important. Till you're not empty, all your talk about awareness, consciousness, Brahman, Nirgun, Sagun, God, surrender, inquiry, all of this stuff is empty. Empty of light, empty of frequency. And when you are empty, then you may be the most inarticulate, uneloquent of all speakers, and your words will carry a perfume. You will meet it yourself in your heart. And maybe that is a good test, actually. Speak as if the words are meant for yourself. Believe that which you would teach yourself before wanting to share. Find the words where you will experience your own fragrance. If you don't enjoy your own company, you don't enjoy your own words, then no amount of special knowledge is going to help you. You may combine the words of the great Adi Shankaracharya himself with the words of Buddha and Christ together and come up with the best sounding words. But if you're full of identity, those words will have no power. Empty your head. Be full of God's light in your heart. And even the most infantile words have the potency to spread God's light. But when you are full of pride, even you don't want to hear yourself. So, where are we? We talked about who is it that lives in your heart? Whose presence is this? And I'm claiming on your behalf that God is here. God is living in your heart. Then we're saying that our life must become about the centrality of God's light instead of about the non-existent me. And we're exploring how false knowledge and the need to be right can prevent that from happening. And how humility is very important provisionally while we make the switch away from head to heart. Now you're here, empty of pride. God's light is unobstructed within you. Now, firstly, the question will not arise as to how should I live, but suppose that it did. Suppose it arose within us. How to live? God's light is already living you. It's already living you. So allow that to unfold without mental obstruction, open and empty. So that solves the problems of what is and how to live. To live surrendered to God. And there will also come a time where guidance will be palpable to you from your heart. Whether it arises for that which you call yourself or for others, you must follow that guidance. So that is to live in God's light. That is to live in heaven on earth. Some of you already have that sensitivity now that as you find your attention itself gravitating towards the mind, you're able to withdraw it. But don't worry about that if that is attention is still in the head a lot. At least don't believe what is being offered. One question is, Father, you say that God is that's here. What are you doing? But sometimes the word God seems to create more separation than union. But that is in our heads. If I said Bhagwan, so suppose you don't hear God, you hear Bhagwan instead. So this is nothing but the Hindi for God. Or I said Allah, or I said Yahweh. The point is not that. The point is not the word, although the word I have no aversion to. But really, the point is that there is a presence within you. Who is that? That is worth exploring. And it feels like a holy presence, a divine presence, whatever word you may use. How can anything else be worthwhile? One point that is not this, and of course that was not your question, but it reminded me of that because it came to me in some conversations with some of the kids I had yesterday, where it just came from here that a lot of time we are trying to take accountability from God. I can't believe in a God that does this. How can a God be like that? I can't buy into a God that is like this. You see? But what you believe and don't believe and accept and not accept, it is not God that is in trial in your court. It is completely irrelevant. God is not accountable to you. God doesn't have to make sense to you. Even His created universe doesn't make sense to you. Like the great scientist said, the universe has no obligation to make sense to you. And you expect that which is the creator of that to make sense to you. Are you accountable instead to God? How about we switch it? In what way are you accountable to God? God has given His presence to animate your life, to make you alive. How have you, what have you returned as God's gift for even one breath? What can you pay back God for even one breath that He has given you? Then now we are out to make God accountable to us. And these things have become very natural and regular in the world, but I spot the ignorance in them, and therefore, not with the idea of producing any guilt or unworthiness, but just to get you to look what is happening. Look at the way the mind is playing this game. It has made itself the judge even for God. Forget about you and your friends and relatives and relationships. I can't believe in a God that does like that. Who cares about the judgment of a non-existent one? If you exist, where have you got that existence from? Who has gifted you that existence? And if that one was to hold you accountable for the gifts that you have received, have you valued the presence of God? So switch it around. Egoic way of thinking is big trouble and only the doorway to suffering. God has given you life. God has given you a beautiful instrument called a body. God has given you this universe, this dream called the universe. You're living and breathing in God's light. If there is one that has rights now, which one is that? If there is one that can demand now, which one is that? It's like a guest came to the party, like Guruji said, in a different way, paraphrasing. A guest comes to the party, says, I'm hungry. You offer bread. Yes. Is it organic? Is it gluten free? No. God has already given you everything. And then you hold God on trial. It's just the absurdity from the mind. So there's another question on this. On the term God or actually the presence itself that is here. Now, you must admit by now that there is a very palpable presence, I am. Nobody looks at this presence and says, you are. Everyone says, I woke up this morning. I am sitting. So this is undeniable no matter what words you may be using. Now we're also finding that this presence I am has no limit, it has no boundary. In fact, very little of it, and yet the most magnificent is in the perceptual realm at all, where you can sense a vibration, a subtle presence, I am. You can sense its presence. And yet the being instantly, as you meet the presence, you recognize that it is coming from an unlimited source. Nobody comes to the presence of being and say, oh, yeah, that could be a little bit. There's a little bit I am. Yeah? Anyone had that experience? You come to I am. Chota mota. And then is it big or small? Unlimited. You cannot define it. So this presence appears as if it is within us. But of course, upon investigation, you see that it cannot be within the body, although it may seem to correlate in this. And yet you find this unlimited, the presence of an unlimited one within you. The words are secondary. The question is, who is this? Whose presence is this? And if you do find a word that you can use for it, if that one is here, then how is my stuff, quote unquote, my stuff relevant anymore? Whose presence is here? Whose life is this? So if there is a duality, is it that, okay, I already take myself to be me, and now there is another one here, but that me is indisputable. So if we confirm that another one is here, that would mean that there is separation or that there are two. I am saying that the me is not there. It's completely questionable and you must ask the question. And only God is.